Hey there, I am Susan L. Tuttle. Thank you, Tony Shiloh, for having me on Wednesday Excerpts. So I'm going to be reading from my latest release, Then Again Maybe. Please excuse the little torn corner. This book is the second book in my Along Came Love series, and it's all about Belle and Micah. And at the end of the first book, if you've read it, and if you haven't, this is a bit of a spoiler, but she's left pregnant at the altar. And this book takes place a couple years later. She hasn't seen Micah in all that time since what was supposed to be their wedding day. He hasn't even met their child, their daughter Anna, and she bumps into him quite unexpectedly at the hospital that he is working at. She doesn't know he's come back into town, and she's at the hospital talking to someone that works there, and they literally run into one another. So this is their first scene together. I'm going to try to read and see you at the same time. Belle had heard of life moving in slow motion, but she'd never actually experienced it until this very second. Time downshifted as she turned, and a figure caught in her periphery. Every second dragged out. As much as she hoped she was seeing things, she wasn't. Micah Shaw stood in front of her. That reality rooted her feet to the floor and her tongue to the roof of her mouth. Pretty sure her heart stopped too before pounding out a staccato beat that screamed, "Run!" "Belle, this is Micah Shaw." Letty's words dropped off at Belle's stiff stance. She must have noticed Micah stood in a similar statuesque state, because her gaze bounced between the two of them. After an agonizing moment, Letty broke this thick silence. "Do you two know each other?" Belle let her bolting figure answer. "Belle?" Letty's concern chased her down. Dodging it, Belle kept moving. Not the elevator. She needed out of here, now. Sweat pooled along her spine as she darted to the stairwell. "Belle," Micah's deep voice made a grab for her as well, but she'd learned the art of leaving from him. Tugging the door open, she raced through. "Belle, wait!" She wouldn't, except his long legs had always moved faster than hers. She hadn't even made it to the next floor before his gentle hand ground her to a stop. The familiar scent of cedar, Irish spring soap, and the tiniest hint of antiseptic washed over her with a wave of bittersweet emotion. Slowly, she tracked her gaze up his lean body until it landed on those deep blue eyes that taunted her memories and stared at her every day from their young daughter's face. Micah looked up, every bit as surprised as she felt. He released his hold as if touching her had been as unplanned as seeing her. Breath whipped from her lungs, and she couldn't seem to suck it back in, especially when his gaze moved from surprise to something else, regret, and cautious hope. Hope that she wouldn't lay him flat right here in the stairwell? "Belle," her name scratched from his deep voice, the same one that used to send a thrill through her. And dang it all, if the familiar sound didn't tug at her treacherous heart still. He raked a hand through his thick blonde hair, still wore it long and spiked away from his forehead in waves. His ever-present tan covered his strong face, strength that mimicked his steel will, something she once found attractive, until he used it to cut her and their daughter from his life. Now that strength seemed to soften in his eyes, giving a vulnerability that he seldom allowed to show before. He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "It's good to see you." Seriously? Good to see you? That was all he could muster? Heat worked through her, stealing all remaining coherent words. She turned to keep moving down the stairs before she did something she'd regret. Or not regret, because she itched to deck him, but the last thing she needed was to be arrested for assault. That possibility didn't seem to faze Micah. His fingers encircled her wrist, and this time he held on. His touch remained loose enough that she could easily break away, but as her shoulders brushed his chest, the heat of his body stoked latent memories that momentarily paralyzed her. Her body, heart, and mind all seemed to be operating on different bandwidths, none of them connecting with the reality of this moment. She'd dreamed of this for years, what she'd say if she ever saw him again, how she'd look, feel. None of those scenarios came close to the past 3 minutes. So That scene goes on for a little bit more here in this book, but if you want to see it, you're gonna have to read it. So you can find the book on Amazon or in any bookstores. But I just wanna thank you again, Tony, for having me. It was a lot of fun. I hope you guys all have a great day.